And here he is with Gene Baker and George Altman. They were the first three. The Cubs, after the Cubs moved their spring training operation to Rendezvous Park in Mesa from 1952 to 65. Banks was the team's best and most popular player the whole time, winning back-to-back MVP awards in 1958 and 1959. He played in 8 consecutive All-Star games from 1955 to 1962. There's plenty of reasons why they called him Mr. Cub. So this is a guy named Fernando Guerrero. The spring training operations in Mesa are run by a civic organization called the Mesa Hohokams. They do the ticketing and the parking, and they have the ushers working and the concessions and all different kinds of things. They have a lodge that they hang out in after the game. They run a 50-50 raffle and they give the money to different charities. So after the game, there's a lot of guys do a lot of work every day for nothing, and but they do sit around and have beer, and I get to join them sometimes in their lodge and have beers with them. And I got a hold of this guy, and I asked him some questions about the past, because he was one of the guys who was one of the senior elder members of the club. And he told me that in advance of the Cubs' arrival in Arizona for spring training, the Mesa Hohokam Civic Organization was founded in 1951 for the dual purpose of sponsoring spring training for Major League Baseball teams and promoting the city of Mesa. Fernando Guerrero Sr., he was 87 in this picture, he's probably about 90 now, and an early member of the organization, eventually rising to the top position of Big Ho. When you're the head of the Hohokams, that's what they call you, the Big Ho. So he recently remembered his days with Ernie Banks in Mesa. This is a quote from Fernando. He said, Dwight Patterson, the organization's first leader, would get a hold of me sometimes, and he would say, Ernie wants to play golf. Can you run him over to the country club? And I didn't realize at the time that that was because Ernie was black, said Guerrero. Adding, Mesa was segregated at the time. There was a school for black on the north side and for Mexicans in the barrio. The movie theater was segregated, and the black and Mexicans could only use the public pool on the day before it was drained and cleaned. That's what Fernando remembers about those days. There's Billy Williams. He was with the Cubs in Mesa here. Banks' teammate Billy Williams joined the Cubs as an amateur free agent in 1956, just a couple of years after Banks, and made his big league debut on August 6, 1959. During the time Banks and Williams were with the Cubs in Mesa for spring training in the mid-50s, the team's hotel was segregated. You see a running theme here. That's everywhere these guys go. This photograph is of the office of Dr. Lucius Alston, the first African-American physician in the city of Mesa. He's highly regarded. He's given historic status in the town still to this day. Billy Williams lived during spring training in the doctor's office. I came to spring training in 1957, and I stayed in the barracks at Rendezvous Park with the minor leaguers for those first few years. When I made the big league roster in '61, I rented a little place in Mesa, which was a doctor's office. Recalled Williams of his temporary living quarters located in the office of the city's first black physician, Dr. Lucius Alston, near this intersection of Center and University Street, just 3 blocks from Rendezvous Park. So that's he would walk to the games, and the guy told me, I talked to Billy Williams on the phone, and he told me that the doctor put a rollaway bed in his office for him and gave him a hot plate to cook on. But he had to find a place to go get coffee in the morning. He'd call Ernie Banks up from wherever Ernie was living, and they would walk and get coffee somewhere and then go over to the ballpark. This is what the doctor's house is. The other one was an office. This is where the doctor lived. It's now the MLK Center in Mesa, and it's a functioning office still. Banks spoke about the living conditions in Mesa for Jackie Robinson's book, the 1964 book, Baseball Has Done It. A few years ago, we had a little housing problem in Mesa. We stayed at a white hotel with the team, but when we tried to bring our families to Arizona with us, we couldn't rent a place for them. We brought this situation to the club's attention. They made an issue of it, threatening to move the team to another site. As a result, we now bring our families to Mesa. Our being there has opened up the question of segregation in the entire area. The The Chamber of Commerce and the civic leaders all turned tail and are now fighting against discrimination, said Banks. You know, Ernie Banks was such an optimist and always such a good-natured guy. It's hard to get him to complain about anything. But, you know, this is 1964, so this is about the time that the Civil Rights Bill is being signed into law. And it took that many years, basically, for the Cubs to also find living quarters with the team, almost a decade after these guys first joined. So here's Willie Mays. I'm kind of going one player at a time and telling their stories. This is a great shot of him as a young man with the Birmingham Black Barons. All of these guys crossed over, which is kind of cool. They got their time in the Negro Leagues and in the Major Leagues. Among Major League Baseball's first African-American All-Stars and a handful of players who crossed over from the segregated Negro Leagues, Willie Mays began his professional career as a 17-year-old center fielder for the Birmingham Black Barons of the Negro American League, reaching the Negro League World Series with the team in 1948. Mays played for the Black Barons for 2.5 seasons before being discovered by minor league scouts in 1950 and was eventually signed by the New York Giants after previously being pursued by the Boston Red Sox, who later signed Hank Aaron to his first major league contract. If not for the Black Barons wanting to retain Mays' service for the remainder of the 1949 season, Mays and Aaron may have been the two most accomplished major league teammates since Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig. They almost ended up on the same team. Could you imagine that? Willie Mays and Hank Aaron on the same team? Yep. Here's a shot of the 1949 Negro League World Series champion Birmingham Black Barons. Mays is way up there in the back, behind those two guys with his head up against the wall. And here he is, Willie Mays signing his contract with the New York Giants owner Horace Stoneham. Like Bill Veeck, Giants owner Horace Stoneham was also a forerunner in baseball's integration movement. The Giants were the fourth of the 16 major league teams to integrate, and 4 of the first 17 black players in the major leagues were signed by Stoneham. This is the W.H. Patterson Elks Lodge in Phoenix. I don't know if anybody's familiar with this place. It's still there. I think I see some people shaking their heads, yes. Yeah. So, Willie Mays, while Mays and Irvin and other black teammates on the Giants like Hank Thompson and Bill White were allowed to stay at the Adams Hotel, they were not allowed to fully utilize its accommodations and often hung out and socialized at the Elks Lodge, a center of social activity open to members of the African American community located on the 1000 block of South 7th Avenue. The Elks Lodge is listed among non-segregated institutions in the 1950 and 1951 editions of the Negro Motorist Green Book, an international travel guide designed to assist African Americans during times of segregation. The ball players used the Green Book to find out where they would be welcome when they got here. Here's a page from the Green Book. It's funny, I was trying to find these places where the Elks Lodge and the houses where Mays lived when they couldn't live with the hotel, and I accessed the Green Book's records online. They're still available. And these are kind of small print, but they're listed right on these pages. That's how I knew where to go when I was trying to find the Elks Lodge. Here's Willie Mays. He's being named an honorary member. He hung out at this place for so long. Even after the Adams Hotel became integrated, he never stayed there. He didn't want to. He liked it better at the Elks Lodge, and he lived next door in a little house, which I'm going to show the picture here in a minute. But if you go into the Elks Lodge now, this picture's still on the wall. Mounted on a wall among a large collection of photographs at the Elks Lodge in South Phoenix are 2 framed black and white images depicting baseball legend Willie Mays being named as an honorary member of the lodge. This photo is taken in April of 1992, with Mays receiving a framed certificate from the lodge's exalted ruler, Henry Cooper. And in the other photo, he's standing at the center of a group of more than a dozen African-American lodge members who appear to be around his same age. There they all are on that day. 40 years earlier, Mays became a freak, before that picture was taken, he was a frequent visitor to the Elks Lodge in the city's predominantly African-American enclave, where he lived just across the street at 915 South 7th Avenue during spring training. While most of his New York Giants teammates stayed at the Adams Hotel, now the Renaissance Hotel, at First and Adams Street in downtown, Mays was one of the 3 African-American players on the Giants spring training roster in 1952 that were not allowed to stay at the hotel. He found a place to stay near the Elks Lodge, owned by some family friends from his home state of Alabama. Sam Williams was the owner of the place, but his sister Blanche McBroom lived there with her husband, and he knew Willie because they were all from the same place in Alabama, said Art Whitmore, a local resident and former exalted ruler of the lodge. That's Art. Willie Mays used to love to shoot pool. This is Art talking. They used to hustle him the first 2 years, but Leo, DeRocher, taught him how to shoot pool, and then they didn't hustle him no more, said Whitmore. Willie didn't drink, just Coca-Cola. They live right next to the place. That house is a historic house. She had 3 rooms that she used to rent out. Sad Sam Jones, Ernie Banks, this was their hangout, said Whitmore. And here's a couple other guys. These pictures were taken about 3 years ago, and they're standing around the pictures of Willie Mays on the wall. The group still gathers there pretty much every morning. If you show up at 9 or 10 o'clock, they just start filing in, and it's still a clubhouse. Blanche McBroom actually owned both of these houses and kept them up for the players. She was the landlord, so when they would roll in for the spring, she'd just make the accommodations ready for them. I think that these buildings, just like the one down in Tucson, should be kind of marked. It was funny, when I was doing this story, they were for sale. There was real estate ads for these buildings, and I thought, man, if they told people that Willie Mays lived there, they could get a lot more for him. So in this picture, that's Bill White. Remember Bill White? Great first baseman, also the first black president of the National League. And here he is as a very young man. And this is taken in that house. They're having a little get together. Bill White visiting with Willie Mays and friends at Mays spring training residence. So he was 19 years old when he moved in with, when Bill White was 19 years old, he roomed with Monty Irvin at the Adams Hotel. This was after the place became integrated. And during the spring of '53. The Adams Hotel wasn't segregated in '53 when I stayed there, said White, adding, Willie never stayed there as far as I know. I stayed at the Adams Hotel and I would spend time at Willie's place. We spent most of the time in the black area over there at the Elks and would shoot pool and whatever, said White, who played for 13 years in the big leagues but before becoming a broadcaster for the New York Yankees and the first African-American president of the National League in 1989. These got a little bit out of order because we were trying to pop them in, but I'm going to explain a little bit about what this is. This is the Red Sox a few years later. The Red Sox were at Scottsdale Stadium from 1959 to about 1965. It was the end of Ted Williams' career at that time, the beginning of Carl Yastrzemski's career. The Red Sox were also the last team in the major leagues to integrate, and Pumpsy Green was that player, the first black player on the Red Sox. He's in this picture. This is at a bar called the Coach House in Scottsdale. And that's also Felix Mantilla that side of the picture, and Pumpsy Green this side of the picture. The Coach House in Scottsdale, I believe, was perhaps the first integrated bar in Scottsdale. And at the time, the city had these kind of blue light laws where after 6 o'clock, if you were a black person, you weren't even allowed to be on certain sides of town. Willie Mays spoke about this at his Hall of Fame induction ceremony a couple of years ago. But the owner of the Coach House was a big baseball fan, and when the Red Sox were in town and the players came in, He didn't look at them any different. He just said they're on the team, they're in. And so that kind of started the integration process in a town like Scottsdale. So the coach house can be, gets a little credit for that. I'm friendly. The owners are still the same family of the people who own the coach house. And they have this picture hanging up on the wall if you go in the bar. So we were talking about Ted Williams for a second there because of the Red Sox. Ted Williams was actually a great proponent of integration for years. When he got inducted into the Hall of Fame, he gave a very memorable speech that kind of led to the inductions of Satchel Paige and Josh Gibson, who never played in the major. Well, Gibson never played in the major leagues. Paige did, but it was Williams who kind of brought that issue to the forefront. But he was talking about it even back way before then, when he was still an active player. This is a excerpt from a column written by a guy named Doc Young, and he was writing for the Daily Defender in Chicago in August of 1966. But he did some interviews with Williams when he was during spring training. And I knew Ted was a good guy, though he didn't wear white hats. He and I sat on the field in Scottsdale, Arizona one spring day because Johnny Pesky, then managing the Red Sox, had chased us, me really, the reporter, out of the dugout. And Ted bemoaned the fact that his team, the Red Sox, had never found a Negro superstar. I didn't bring up the point that they could have had Jackie Robinson for free in 1945. There was no reason to. Ted proved that on that day he was inducted to the Hall of Fame. He came into Cooperstown and holed up in a motel to compose his speech. Seldom previously known for his brilliant oratory, he composed a classic. And this is a quote from Ted Williams. "I hope," he said in part, "that Satchel Paige and Josh Gibson will somehow be inducted here as symbols of the great Negro Leagues players who are not here because they were not given a chance." I'm going to go back to the two slides that came out of order because I'm almost done. And this is Bill White again. Bill White and some of the other New York Giants black players having a picnic dinner at South Mountain Park in Phoenix. That's Bill White right there. He looks like he's trying to make some time with this one here who doesn't look that interested right there. But integration came with some stumbles, as White recalled. White was friends with actor Jeff Chandler, who was starring as Cochise in a movie, and asked him to go see it. When I got in line for the movie, by the time I got to the window, the girl had left and went to get the manager. And he said, "I'm sorry, we don't have the balcony." And I said, "I don't want to sit in the balcony." And it finally dawned on me that I couldn't go to the movies. So I went back to my room. Monty was there, and I yelled and screamed about it. And he looked at me and he said, "Junebug," he used to call me Junebug, "be patient, this will change." And obviously some things have changed a bit, said White. By their mere presence in Arizona, the first African-American players to arrive for spring training helped to affect change in institutions and businesses relative to the baseball industry, forcing integration in places like the Adams Hotel. Here's Bill White's book that he wrote, his memoir, a couple of years ago, Uppity. I'm going to close with this quote from Bill White. "Baseball helped affect change because of the financial aspect of it," White said. "It wasn't that they were all that liberal." So, I'll close with that one.
Thank you, Charlie. So, unfortunately, I have been informed that Byron Brown won't be joining us, but I learned a long time ago that we don't dwell on those who aren't here. We appreciate those who are. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to shift. And Dana, I'd like to bring you up, and we're going to open it up to the floor. We're going to hear from a few of our friends, family, and baseball fans here in the audience, okay? You're next. Jim. We'll get you.
Okay, what a marvelous history. What a marvelous history. As with programs of this magnitude, someone anxious to come in, there is a black Cadillac out, Texas license plate, the Red Cross. My fraternity had a blood drive here earlier today, so if you wouldn't mind, black Cadillac license plate, is that a 5 or SHX55? Yes, if you wouldn't mind moving your car, the Red Cross is trying to leave. Thank you so much, sir. And thank you for coming all the way from Texas. Let's give him a hand. You know, what a magnificent history first. Let's give these gentlemen a hand for that research. That's remarkable. I heard applause go up for the Ford Smith family earlier, and certainly we want to acknowledge the Ford Smith family, and I earlier acknowledged the home run hitter, former student here, Ms. Dottie Patisse, sitting right there. Let's see, there was Babe Ruth, there was Josh Gibson, there was Hank Aaron, and Dottie Patisse, home run hitter. Also, all of you are certainly honored guests, and certainly we are honored to have the presence of Ms. Ruth Banks here today, a student here as well, the sister of the late Coy Payne, the first African-American mayor in the state in Chandler. So Mrs. Ruth Banks, right here. Ms. Ruth Franklin, yes. Yes.
My name is Ruth Ann Payne
Franklin. Ruth Ann Payne Franklin. Yes, would drive over.
91 years old.
And we applaud that too. 91 years young. Thank you for being here. They would drive over from Chandler back in the day before the roads were paved. So it's a 35-minute drive now, so it was even longer then. And they were on time for school every day.
Hour ride.
1 hour. Yes. Hey, we need to applaud that. Yes, and so many others, and I'm going to turn it back over to
Oh, great. Bill?
Bill for some, and Dolores Meredith. Yes, right here up front, Ms. Meredith, who does a lot in terms of sports. Denise Meredith, who does a lot in terms of sports and covering sports across the state. So she's a remarkable individual right here up front, Ms. Meredith.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to welcome Jim Odenkirk, baseball historian. Come on up. If I'm not mistaken, Jim, you're also age 91? You'll be 92 soon?
Oh, pretty soon.
Oh, okay.
Pretty soon.
All right.
Use the microphone, please.
And I think I feel like it, but you need this. No, I normally don't need it. Can you hear me?
No, they need it.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, I just thank you for letting me chit chat for a moment, and also make a couple of comments about the first two programs that we received were very, very good. I enjoyed them. For Charlie particularly, I wrote a book on the history of the Cleveland Indians, and that was my determined effort to make sure that was going to be on there. Oh, I'm sorry.
They can just speak right there.
Okay. How about that?
Yes.
I was determined to have that picture for a lot of reasons. I've always been, if I may be so sincere, is that I'm wanting to help black people and any other people, to be honest, in any way I can, and have been for all my life. I'm a retired professor from Arizona State, but I've been all around the country, so to speak. But anyway, I thank Charlie for that because I thought that represented a lot more for baseball than some of the other pictures I might have had. I just want to quickly tell you that when I was in the Army during World War II, near the end, and I was stationed at Fort Jackson, South Carolina. And I'd grown up in a little farm near Mansfield, Ohio. So I hadn't seen many black people. And when I wanted to go to a game at Columbia, Missouri, Columbia, South Carolina, as a soldier, why, I go into the ballpark, and you can imagine what I was going to see. White people are all around home plate, and the black people down along the right field line. And that's the way it was at that time. Now, it's 1945 and 46, and, you know, that was shocking. But I didn't know any different. Then I played some semi-pro baseball, and you're going to get some history here right now, and you want to make sure to put this in your scrapbook, because I played semi-pro baseball, and I played against a black major leaguer not at that time, a name you haven't mentioned, Johnny Roseboro. Johnny Roseboro was 14 miles away from where I live, and he hit a ball. I think it's come down now. I mean, he hit it so far, I never saw one. And as you know, Johnny Roseboro went on to be a major league ball player. That's the only one I ever played against. Well, one more, but that's enough for that. I love baseball, of course. I want to mention to you again about Larry Doby. I was fortunate. I took a lot of young children up to Cleveland for the games. I was born to be a Cleveland Indians fan. That's just the way it was. I can't help that. But anyway, we helped me get them to World Series, win championship. We haven't seemed to make it for a long, long time. Anyway, when Mr. Doby came in, the next year I saw the first two black players in the American League, which was Larry Doby and Satchel Paige. So that was quite an achievement. And from that point on, of course, things got better. I remember then when I was teaching at Arizona State, I worked on the baseball programs and had classes with Bobby Winkles and a couple of other coaches that had great teams, and we began to get a lot of good ball players, as you well know. Barry Bonds. Help me with my... Barry Bonds? Barry Bonds. Barry Bonds, obviously. And the next one is an interesting person because I had him in class. And, you know, in a college, you're supposed to behave. And here I am lecturing away, and he's babbling away in the back in the room. And I finally had to stop and say, now I got to get the name. No.
Reggie?
Huh?
Reggie Jackson?
No, you help me. That's what happens when you get old. When you're...
Barry Bonds.
No, I didn't have Barry Bonds.
Reggie Jackson?
Reggie Jackson.
Isn't that awful?
O.D.B. McDowell?
The home run hitter? This is embarrassing, but I'm sorry. He was with the Oakland A's and the Yankees.
Oh, Reggie Jackson. Reggie Jackson.
I apologize.
Mr. October.
Yeah, Mr. October. So I had him in class, and I finally had to stop. Reggie, will you keep quiet and sit down and behave? You know, to tell how but I had to do that. He was messing up the class. Well, we became very good friends, and lo and behold, he sent me tickets for 4 games in different parts of the country. So he's a great guy, and he really was, and a great ball player. I also keep angry at myself because I was at a baseball conference in Kansas City. I'm sitting here, and I'm a little younger and a little more afraid to do something. And across here, sitting there, was Buck O'Neill. Buck O'Neill. And I thought, oh, I'd love to go talk to him. But I was shy about doing it. So I never got to talk to him. That was a terrible mistake on my part. Anyway, thank you for a few remarks, and best wishes to everybody. Thank you.
So we are at 4:45, so I thought we'd open up the floor for questions, comments, anything from the audience that you'd like to share. And while you're thinking or drumming up the courage to ask a question, just want to let you know that we're building an exhibit off to the side, speaking of Buck O'Neill and Negro Leagues baseball history. We're in the spring training phase right now of the exhibit. It's going to be organic, it's going to be community-based. Those who in the community who might have artifacts they'd like to share and display. The museum